Hello and welcome to our live stream. What can we learn from the Parisian Bike Revolution? I'm your host, Megan Sally Wells. I'm the former mayor of Culver City. I'm also a former French to English translator. And most importantly, I'm the co-founder of Bike Culver City, and that happened about 10 years ago. Bike Culver City is an all-volunteer, member-supported local chapter of the LA County Bicycle Coalition. You can learn more about our work and donate to Bike Culver City at bikeculvercity.org. I want to thank you for joining us on today's ride. We're going to have a great ride. We're going to cover the big, beautiful bike transformation of Paris's streets from one of the key visionaries behind the movement, Charlotte Nenner, who is joining us live from Paris. We're going to follow the presentation with a Q&A with another special guest. So be sure to type in your questions and comments in the comment section. It's my pleasure to introduce Charlotte Nenner. She's been blogging for many years, and if you speak French, I highly recommend you check out her blog, Charlotte Bikes, or Charlotte à Vélo. She was a council member in Paris from 2001 to 2008, a longtime activist and ecologist at Europe Ecology Les Verts, that's the Green Party. And now in 2000, she was elected to the Paris Regional Council. The Paris region is called Île-de-France. And just for some context, the Paris region and LA County are pretty strikingly similar in both size and population. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Council Member Charlotte Nenner. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you in Los Angeles, but I'm live from Paris. It's nighttime, but I'm glad to be there. So maybe we should start with some history, because biking in Paris is just like a love story, but in a shorter version. So the first proto-bike was invented in 1818. It was named the Dresienne. It comes from Germany, but you could also find Dresienne in Paris. In fact, the first bike race ever happened between Paris and Versailles, and you can see they were quite smart. And in 119, there are the golden age of bicycling, and Gustave Eiffel built La Cipale, the only velodrome that hosted the Olympics game twice. In 1972, there was a pro-bike demonstration on the Champs-Élysées.
Nous avons fait cette manifestation pour protester contre l'abondance des voitures dans Paris, tant au point de vue circulation, pollution par le bruit que par les gaz d'échappement.
Les voitures, ça pue. Le vélo.
Nous ne sommes pas contre l'automobile en tant que moyen individuel de circuler d'une ville à une autre, mais à l'intérieur des grandes villes et surtout dans les centres, ça nous paraît ne pas être cohérent.
Mais qui êtes-vous vous-même ?
Moi, je suis président des Amis de la Terre. C'est l'organisation qui a lancé le mouvement.
Ce qu'on demande surtout, c'est la régularisation de la circulation dans Paris, la mise à la disposition de vélos communautaires pour les Parisiens.
Et qui les paierait ?
Qui les paierait? Le gouvernement.
Le vélo gratuit pour tous les Parisiens.
Well, as you can see, I wasn't born, but it was the first demonstration in the Champs-Élysées, and I was there last Sunday, and I think it's just almost like it. But between 1972, we had a long period because where the mayor of Paris said that we needed to adapt the city to the cars. And it started in 2001 when the mayor was defeated and replaced by a coalition between the left and the Greens with the ambition to reduce traffic and pollution. And in 2007, the Vélib program was launched, and it became a really turning point. In 2015, the Paris Council unanimously voted for the cycling plan with the ambition of making Paris the cycling capital of the world. We are not there yet, but we've made big progress. And 2021, we are living a true bike revolution, but there's still some work to be done. So you can find it here with the mayor of Paris that was on the Champs-Élysées last Sunday. Some data to understand mobility in Paris, because it's important to point some data, some numbers. First, each Parisian made 3.8 daily trips, and it's 1.5 hour of travel time, which is quite a lot. But the average daily distance is 11 miles. But it's also with many transportation. 2/3 of the trips are less than 3 kilometers, meaning 1.8 miles, meaning that it can be done riding bicycle. So it's quite important, and the potential is quite important. And one thing that you have to know is Parisians walk a lot, and it's the first mode of travel with 17.2 million daily trips. So we walk a lot because the distance are quite short. And the trips by car are very important too, but they are mainly outside Paris in the suburbs. Why do we need bikes in our cities and in our lives? It's important that politics and local administration are convinced and fully committed toward a cycling policy. Bike is good for you, for individuals, but it's also good for the society and the planet. First, and all these points are to be repeated constantly in order to make a good policy, a good cycle policy. First, bike is a solution to the climate crisis. And it's a solution in a multimodal approach. And it's important to point that bike in the climate crisis, it's really important to take in account bike and cycling policy. Transportation is one of the major sources of greenhouse gas emission. Electric vehicles can't be the only solution. Fighting the climate crisis is also about modal shift, changing to a less polluting mode of transport. Biking is zero emission of CO2, and it's a good alternative for individual transportation. Bike is a solution to air pollution as well. air pollution strikes more people with low incomes. For them, it's double penalty, bad homes and bad environment. Bike is also a solution to various health problems. One of it is the effects of the sedentary lifestyle that increased very much during the COVID crisis and the lockdown. Bike is also a solution to noise due to the motorized traffic. And it can be also a problem and can lead to problem of health as well. And also that can be very hard to live in the cities with that noises. And bike is also virtuous regarding the purchase power. It provides mobility for those who can't afford a car or the fuel. And of course, bikes are almost free. Regarding transportation management, a cycle policy is a way to fight traffic congestion and the metro overload. For example, a recent study showed that at rush hour, the number of bikes is more important than cars in the Boulevard Magenta, for example, in Paris. So it's really a good way to fight rush hour and congestion. And you can note that it's the cheapest. Take an example of the new metro line that is built in Paris. It's called the Grand Paris Express. It cost 40 billion euros, and it will carry 2.3 million people daily. The RERV, which is a large network of bike lanes, will cost only less than 2% of this budget and will benefit to 12 million people daily. So it's really powerful and it's cheap. But in a large city like LA, you can't think mobility without multimodality. You won't be able to do a whole trip with just one mode. So it's the multimodal transportation has to make sure that it should be very easy to ride your bike, then take the metro, then walk until your final destination, for example. One way we have to point out that public space is like any natural resources, it's limited. Even if LA, you have plenty of space and large avenues, you will never have enough space to content everybody. So you have to make choices. And by choosing first pedestrian, then bikes, then buses, and after all cars, you will find the most efficient way to design and share the road. As you can see in that example, it's 40 transport people in every photo. And so you're now convinced that you have to make a great bicycle policy. And what is the 4 ingredients to a successful bike policies? First, the first ingredient is to have a bike. You can't ride a bike without a bike, so you need a bike. In terms of policy, in Paris, we had the Vélib program, which is one of the larger bike share systems in the world. In Ile-de-France, in the Paris region, there is also a long-term e-bike rental. It's for 6 months. There is also financial aid towards the purchase of bikes. For example, in our region, the aid is 50% of the purchase for an electric bike. And some cities develop an aid for the purchase of recycled bikes or normal bikes, used bikes. And the city of Lyon will even give a used bike to 2,000 students for free. The second ingredient is a safe ride, and I think it's the most important. You need real bike lanes that can create a continuous network. The third ingredient is parking solutions, because theft is it's a real problem. You don't want your perfect bike to be stolen. So it's really important to think of parking solutions in big station, and also at homes. And the fourth ingredient is all the bike services and educational programs that you can create, that goes from repair shops or training for kids or adults. And you also can develop, you can develop about bike culture, just like special events, festival, or bike to school. These are measures that are really important in order to make the culture go live. But the most important is bike lanes for safer ride. And these are design principles that we developed in Paris. And these are the advice that I can give you. First, you have to identify the priorities. You have to choose roads and crossroads that are strategic for bikers. The path must be relevant and direct. And remember that a cyclist will not make a detour. He will take always the most direct route. Make sure it's connected with the crossroads. And bike lanes need barriers, not just paint. It can be temporary, just like in the photo. And just like we did in Paris with the Corona Piste. Corona Piste is a temporary bike lane that we made, that was made just after during the COVID crisis. And this temporary bike lane had lots of critics, because some said that they were ugly. But I think that temporary bike lane are a good way to test them, and before making big investment in this amenity. After, you have to think that the design is the key. Always, and to do so, the best is to organize a consultation with local biker association. User can always say what is good and what is wrong. And after all, you have to invest. For example, of course, you need money for Paris in 2015. The 5-year cycling plan invests 150 million euros. But relax, it's always much cheaper than any other road or transportation investment.
I'm super jealous. This is amazing. As a former elected, I know, and you as a current elected official, you know that there's a lot of pushback. It takes a lot to change minds and to change habits. And there are just a lot of myths about bikes, what they can and cannot do. One of the big myths is from businesses who think that, if a car can't come right in front of my shop, I'm just going to go out of business and it's the end of the world. So what do you say to some of these common myths?
Well, I say that cyclists are good consumers. They make fewer purchases per visit, but they come back more often. In total, on average, a cyclist or pedestrian spends more in a convenience store than a motorist. So I say, no parking, good business.
That's great. What about access for people who don't usually get on a bike or have trouble accessing bikes?
or you can always create a special permit for disabled people. But don't forget, disabled are pedestrians and have the same needs. They need large sidewalks, and also you can think about that. Now, special electric bikes give them mobility. As you can see in that example, there is a special bike that is specially made for elderly people. So, bike for everybody.
There's this feeling among drivers that the road belongs to them, and that, you know, having all of the road is like a form of freedom. And maybe this is more American, that it's kind of like a right, the right of being an American to have the whole road.
Don't take away my freedom. Yes. Where is the freedom when you're trapped in a traffic jam 2 hours per day? If you can't park and if you search for hours to find a parking lot. So I think that freedom is relative.
Yeah, and
to be at its worst, Pat, right now.
Well, could it get any worse than that? My goodness. Let's go up to Stu Mundell. He is live in Sky 2. Great place over the 405 and the 10 with more on the holiday getaway. Stu.
Well, you know, it's a great place to be up here. Down there, there might be a little bit frustration, that is for sure. That is going to be the 405 north and southbound right there in that shot, right about at the 10 freeway. And we've been watching the traffic out here all afternoon. Now, they've been calling it Terrible Traffic Tuesday is what they were calling it, because tomorrow is the 4th of July, in case you didn't know. And some people are taking a day off, and they are heading out now. So that's going to be adding in with the people just going home. And yes, there is a lot of traffic out here this afternoon. I can tell you, though, this is a very bad spot. It always is. The 10 freeway, it is a little bit better. I would just call this Traffic Tuesday. Take away the terrible. Wherever you guys are going, have fun, be safe, and just remember, it's just traffic. You'll get through it. Live in Sky 2, I'm Stu Mundell. Back to you two in the studio.
All right. I always said I love Stu's office.
I don't think it's freedom. It's just prison.
yeah. So people, especially in Los Angeles, but I know, you know, having lived in Paris before, it was completely choked with cars. And, you know, people often talk about the car culture, and that, you know, it's just not in our culture to be hopping on a bike and taking other modes of transportation. What do you say to that?
We have the same. Bike is not about the culture of a country. French people or American people can be just like Dutch people. In this photo, you can see a street of Amsterdam in the 70s. They loved the car. It was full of cars, and Amsterdam became the real world capital of bikes. By making political choices. It's not about, it's not in their blood or in their culture. They became really fond of bikes. They made cities that welcome bikes very much by making choices. It was about gas and petrol at that time, but it can be the same for the climate change or in Los Angeles. You just need a click. Now I'm gonna talk about some success stories and also one disaster that in Paris. First, I want to talk about the boulevard de Sébastopol. Le boulevard de Sébastopol is one of the centerpiece of the Réseau Express Vélo, means that is a large network crosses this capital on two main axes, north-south and east-west. And this is in the north-south. This network was claimed by an association, Paris that was really very harsh on Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris. And in 2018, they were very powerful, and finally they got heard. And the city and the technical services associated them with the design of this cycle path. So in this boulevard, bikes used to share the bus line, which was quite okay, but not enough for all the bikes that wanted to go south to north. So in 2019, a bike lane was created on the left side of the road and protected by a separator and two-way. So it's quite large. And on June 9, 2021, this year, this bike lane recorded more than 17,200 passages, which makes it the most used in the world. Yes, we had a world record in that bike lane. So it's a success story, but it needs to be more and larger than it is, because we have bike congestion. Yes, you can imagine bike congestion. Yes, we have it. The second success story is the Canal Saint-Martin. Canal Saint-Martin is the Bohemians Paris. You know, the one with Amélie Poulain. I don't know if you know it. After a demonstration by ecologists in May 2020, I'm the one with yes, I'm one of them we wanted more air, and we blocked the city. The city decided to remove the through traffic just by changing ways of the road without any barriers and very few amenities. You create a sort of labyrinth for cars, which still permits residents to go home. And it's now almost pedestrian. You can walk by the Canal Saint-Martin. Now I'm going to talk about the Rue de Rivoli. Rue de Rivoli is a road that is in the historical center of Paris. It's the road of the Louvre, and that's where Mona Lisa lives. So you can see in the photo in the left side that it was just like a highway in the 80s, and also after. And in 2019, a large bike lane was created on the left side of the road, protected by a separator and two ways. After the lockdown of the COVID crisis, everybody, the French government, the city of Paris, everybody wanted to encourage bikes because it was safer than the metro and causes less pollution and congestion than individual cars. So they created in lots of places the Corona pistes, that are provisional bike lanes painted in yellow. And for the Rue de Rivoli, from June 2020, it's almost 100% for pedestrians and bikes. Just one lane is for taxis, buses, and deliveries. So I think that Mona Lisa can breathe. Let me talk now about one disaster. It's an accident that occurred in Boulogne. The bike lane is not protected and marked only with paint, especially in the crossroad. And in July, a truck turned right and hit a cyclist. This demonstrates that you can't build a bike lane without thinking about continuity. Bad design can create crashes. So now, what is the future? It's not just my big projects. It's a shared project with everybody. First one is one of my favorite is the Vélopolitain. Well, you know that Paris has its metro. It's a network of efficient lines that links the city and makes rapid travel from one end to the capital to the other. The Vélopolitain proposes to double these metro lines on the surface by a network dedicated to cycling. This network has to be continuous, comfortable, and secure. And every Parisian knows the metro map by heart. It means that you will find your way around the city easily. And the RERV is the same project, but in a much larger scale, because it will match the regional train lines. So it's for all the Parisian region. This project comes from the Association of Bikers who gathered in a collective. They went to see all the politics in the county, and they also created a big campaign to promote the RERV. We reached a political consensus about this project, and all candidates to the election have committed to do so. It will be another story, I think, to make it real. But I'll be there to make sure that it's done. So it's a project that I like very much, and I think it is really important. The second project that is in progress in Paris, it's the Streets to School. It's called the Streets to School. It's a project to transform the street in front of a school into pedestrians without car park or any traffic. The children can reclaim the street, use it to play, and their parents can enjoy walking or riding to school. And as you can see, it's also an opportunity to transform the public space and to improve it. Not just for the students and their parents, but also for every citizen in the city. I think, yes, you're right.
This is amazing, and I'm sure folks have a lot of questions. I am really happy to. I know that we saw a lot of questions in the chat. We're going to bring some of those up, and then also to help us answer some of the questions, we get 2 Nenner for the price of 1. We get Sophie Nenner, the sister of Charlotte Nenner. And Sophie, many of you from Bike Culver City know, she's the general manager at Metro Bike Share. She's a Culver City resident and a wonderful bike advocate for our region. So we get to ask questions to both Charlotte and to Sophie. So thank you so much both for joining us. And I think we'll start off with maybe a question that kind of brings the two sisters together, because Bike Share, I know Vélib, you know, we discovered Vélib when it first came about, and one of the questions we had was like chicken and egg, right? Which comes first? Do you do the bike infrastructure first, or do you do the bike share first? And is there an order? So I wonder if both of you could address that question.
Maybe I'll start, Sophie. I think that you can't wait for a bike lane, and you can't wait for the Vélib to come. I think that the most important are bike lanes, I think, but a bike share program really is an accelerator accelerator, accelerate the number and increase very much the number of bikes. And it's like a bike for everybody. So it's a way to have many cyclists in your French bike lane. So maybe you can add something.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I completely agree. One cannot go without the other. Which one should come first? I would say bike infrastructure, but you can't. Yeah, if you have we need to provide bikes to everyone. So that's in a city that is dramatically lacking infrastructure. You have to start somewhere. So by creating more bikers with a bike share system, or by providing more bikes to people, you are creating a larger community of cyclists that will demand more bike infrastructure to their communities. So that's a start. But the bike share system can fail without a proper bike infrastructure.
Yeah, I see that David Coles, who is the David Coles, who's our Bike Culver City's president, is asking a question about the political opposition to the bike movement in Paris. What have you seen over the years that you've been doing this work?
We had lots of opponents. It was quite difficult, as you can say, in the myth that we talk. We heard it a lot, and they are still there because when you create a space for bikes, you take that space from cars. So the most political opponents are the conservative. That wants to not to change anything, and that's the lesson I learned. It's you have to have much energy to do this politics, because there will always be conservative opponents that will be very hard on you, very harsh. I don't know if it's answered the question.
Yeah, and I saw, I definitely saw that because we lived in Paris when some of the early changes were made in creating a more bike-friendly Paris. And I think, one of the things that kind of helped was having the mayor be kind of in charge of everything. In LA, what we have are we have 88 independent cities. We have all these different authorities and, different mayors, different cities. We have the Metro, which is one system. We have Caltrans, which is another. And it feels like sometimes these layers make it too messy to get everybody together on the same track. And Sophie, maybe from, your firm works for Metro, which is, supposed to be bringing us all together. How do you deal with some of that, convoluted different agencies?
So Metro is running the regional bike share system and is supposed to bring everybody together. However, the infrastructure are managed by and controlled by the cities and the different jurisdictions. And even to place a bike share station, they need the authorization of LADOT or the jurisdiction to give space to that bike share station or to that bike lane or to modify the light or the crosswalk or bus stop. So it's really Metro is a way to unify the system, the bike share system, but not the infrastructure. This is a huge problem in LA, and nobody is taking ownership, and no one is accountable for building the bicycle network that we need. And it's a hot potato. It's everybody's creating great plans for the future, and no one is accountable for implementing it. I listened to that in another podcast recently with Celida Reynolds, the GM of LADOT, who was talking about that recently. And it's true. I don't know the solution to that. For me, the solution it actually is more voice from the cyclist, and I'd love to start a little bike revolution like they did in 1972 in Paris. In LA.
I think that you know that in Paris, not in Paris city, but in the Paris region and in the suburbs, it's exactly the same. You have lots of cities that are completely different, that can be conservative, that can be left, that can be green, that can be all over. But it all started with the association of bikers that gathered together, that gathered into a collective, and they were quite powerful to claim for a network that was large. And in order to promote this network, it means that it's not just one bike lane; it's just a whole network, and it will gather. It can convince them to be part of it, part of this big project. And I think that it comes from cyclists themselves, because they are electors, and these politics have to hear them, to understand them.
Yeah. Constituents have a lot of power.
Voters. Sorry, electors means voters.
Voter.
Yeah.
And it's a non-profit coming together. So for the example of LA, it would not be Culver City as a chapter of LACBC or other local chapters of that non-profit, or other representatives of cyclists or people that just like to walk. Maybe Walk LA is also another example. It's a coalition of all those non-profit that are represented by a governance, and then have also a common budget for communication. That is also very important.
Yeah. I think we had a question from Donna that was about, do the bike lanes and bikers accommodate tricycles? There's some narrow lanes right now, at least in Culver City in the LA region.
I think that just tricycles are very important now for deliveries and also for families. It's called vélo cargo. It's cargo in French. I think two-way bike lanes are a good solution, because it's larger, and you can also cross easily. I think two-way bike lane is the solution.
We have a question from Bubba, who's asked about, how did Paris make this happen? Was there, did you see that kind of grassroots demand happening on the ground that made it politically possible to do this?
I think that it came from it's a political history. It was conservative. It was very addicted to cars, and then there was a change of mayor, and we were elected at that time in 2001. With the program of reducing cars, and we were elected for that, so we did it. But then, after a few years, after 10 years, it was a bit. It happened. It didn't happen very much. There was no project, no real ambition. So then it came from the association Parisian, who was really harsh on the mayor at the beginning, and as they were gathering and increasing members, there were lots of members. The fee was really cheap, and all the new bikers were very in demand, reclaim the street really, and that came from them. So Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, at first she had not really good plan for Paris. It was the lack of ideas, but then there was a turning point with that association that was really powerful, and also there was a Velib crisis, and in order to move on that crisis, to change that politics, she made it possible to create large and a strategic plan for Paris, very ambitious. So it came from the people, always. And I'm really sorry for my bad English.
Oh, you're perfect. If all of us could speak French like you speak English, we'd all be smarter and better. I think there was another question that I saw about e-scooters and mini e-bikes that are kind of left here and there, at least in LA. I don't know, is that something you're experiencing in Paris? Like, how do you get an accountability from, private companies that are kind of getting into this space from a money perspective? And maybe when you're from government, you're coming from more of a transportation perspective and a service perspective. So how do you, first, is it a problem? And two, how do you deal with it?
I think e-bikes are not the same than e-scooters. E-bikes are in the ecosystem now. There are some, but the bike share program Velib is more important. So they are part of the landscape. You can see them in the bike lanes, but the problem is the parking. And for scooters and for motorcycle, Paris decided recently to end the free parking for motorcycle and scooters, and it created quite a lot of demonstration, and it was quite important. But the important thing is to manage this and to clear the sidewalks that were invaded by motorcycle, and that's where we wanted to regulate them. But you can't really regulate one thing if you have any need. If you have some people, if you have people who like it, you will have it. But it's okay if you create an ecosystem that is quite balanced.
And Sophie, did you want to speak to that too? Because there's kind of, competition between these, these kind of capitalist, venture capitalist schemes that seem to come and go. They appear without really asking for permission. Then they leave without, once people are dependent on them. And I don't know, when we were dealing with this in Culver City, I was struggling a lot to find any trust or consistency in these private companies, which is why we had early decided to go with the Metro bike share system, which was still kind of in negotiation, just because it felt like, we want a system as opposed to somebody's, weird profit motive idea that is a little, come and go. So from your perspective, Sophie?
Yes, I just wanted to chime in on the previous question on talking about e-scooters. E-scooters, Charlotte, means trottinette électrique, shared trottinette électrique, that are what we have here, the birds, the leaf scooters that are taking the right of way on sidewalks and sometimes on driveways and sometimes in the street. But I think your answer, Charlotte, was great, because I think it covered it. It's actually the same. We need to create space for everybody who wants to use a mode of transportation that was put to their disposal. Like they have options, and and if they like it, and if they're riding those options that are not polluting our options, we need to create space in our right of way for everybody. And to answer your question, Megan, I'm for public transportation. The public investment is needed for non-polluting bike share system, because as we saw and as we continue to see private companies come and go, they are sometimes implementing very fast and moving away very fast. And I think if you want to change the culture, if you want to create a bike culture or a more sustainable culture for transportation, you need to create habits. And if you remove an option from one day to the other, to someone who just started to get used to use a scooter, an electric scooter, to move from place to places, then they're going to go back to car. They're going to get sick of it and they're going to go back to car. They will not necessarily make the effort to find another sustainable solution for their own transportation. So we need to have a reliable and sustainable and in time. They need to know that this service is going to stay, and they can find a bike at that place every day at this hour. They can rely on it. Everybody's busy. We need to fit a lot in very little time in our days, and we need to be able to rely on transportation. So I think public investment is absolutely necessary, on top of welcoming any private businesses that is willing to put maybe more modern, different, innovative mode of transportation that the city is not able to provide. But the bike will stay. So e-bikes will stay. So this is where the city comes in, I think.
I think also it's important to uplift the equity work that's been really just such a huge focus of the work that you're doing. And it's something that the market doesn't really reply to, which is ensuring that folks in all neighborhoods, folks of all incomes, have safe and high level access to transportation infrastructure on which all of us are dependent. And we see the vast inequities when it's kind of like, these fly-by-night companies really that are based on profits. Just that kind of equity doesn't even seem to come into the conversation, except maybe as an advertising ploy. I don't know. That was my impression, and if you wanted to both speak to that, and then after that we're gonna wrap it up, because this has been great, and we're almost coming on the hour.
I could start if you want, Charlotte, on the equity as far as metro bike share infrastructure. Definitely, there's a big concern here in LA, including for metro bike share. I mean, this is at the center of what Metro wants to do, but to get there, it might take several years, because the success of a bike share system is to have an expansion that is contiguous to the current service area. So to get to some service areas, it will take several stations in between. In terms of affordability, the bike share system is definitely equitable. I think, Charlotte, you might want to talk about the pricing of the bike share system that is actually is so low that is actually a problem, because then it opens the door for criticism, because the community can come to Metro, for example, saying it doesn't bring enough revenue it costs too much, because it's a very affordable pricing compared to private companies that offer other micromobility options.
And the price, I thought that it was really important to have a low price in order to create a almost free bicycle. It's quite free. It's really cheap, but it's €8 a month, so it's really cheap to ride a bicycle in Paris, but. It creates also lots of degradation, and you can't. There are too much use and so they are, you know, that some Vélib can be taken 15 times a day. So it's really important. So they don't have any time to refill the electric. It's really important, and they are not in good shape. And after one day, so it's getting a problem. So the long-term bike rent is a good solution. It's really it's 40 euros a month, so it's not cheap, but it's more successful because everyone can take care have much care about the bike than the cheap ones. And that's a fortunate. I think that I thought that the price mean that it's cheap, but you can take care of it. But it's not the same.
And because when you have a bike share system and a long-term rental system that is more expensive, but although they do have a reduced fare at half price, I think at 20 euros a month. But the bike share system is definitely the most affordable system. So the bikes needs to be in good shape. Like that's the equity action here. Like you not only providing an affordable bike share system, but it's in good shape. It's well maintained, and batteries are charged for those who cannot afford the other service or cannot afford to buy their own bike.
Wow, I think we could talk hours and hours more, but we're going to respect everybody's time, including yours, Charlotte, because you're heading, it's probably like 10 p.m. or something in Paris time. So we appreciate your joining us. It's been a real pleasure. And I think, you know, one of the big takeaways of you know, learning from Paris is really the importance of people who want to be able to bike safely, to lift up their voices in order to make that change. It's the, you know, that it's that secret ingredient without which we don't make progress. And so I'm going to give a shameless plug and a shout out to Bike Culver City for their advocacy work, their education work, and this event today, getting us all here together from Paris to Culver City. I invite you to go to Paris. I invite you to go to Paris. I invite you to go to bikeculvercity.org.
I invite you, everyone, to see Mona Lisa on the Rue de Rivoli. Come on.
Yes. I definitely want to go back. So bikeculvercity.org, I would encourage you to donate, to check out the other events. There's a lot of advocacy work to be done in order to make Culver City as bike friendly as Paris and our entire region. Again, we really appreciate all the questions, your engagement. Charlotte, Sophie, thank you. And I want to give a huge shout out. There were a lot of folks that were integral to this. I'll start with my husband, Karim Sali. This was his idea, and he did the slides and the presentation and the streaming. So thank you, Karim. Also, Bubba for your work with helping us get the word out. David Coles. And some of the photo credits are also on your screen as well. So, mwah. Bisous from Paris. This is how you can connect with us on social media, and we appreciate you being here.
Bye, Megan. Thank you very much for having me.
Au revoir.
Thank
And
you.
Who's the cat?
It's my cat.
Merci.